We are on 68 Lamed Al Beis. Okay, Habali Vimto. This is very explicit material tonight, only for adult audiences only. Habali Vimto. Somebody has relations with his Yevama, with the woman who is his deceased brother's wife. Ben B'Shoy Ben Amazing, whether it's intentional or unintentional. What does it mean, intentional or unintentional? Either you're having relations or you're not having relations, right? So unintentional means he thought it was another woman, right? He thought he was having relations with Faggy and said she was having a sprinter, right? And then B'Amazing means he had it for the purpose of licentious. He had it for licentious purposes, not for pure, right, evil, right? So he should have done chalitza. So he had
doing with the right
woman, right? He knew it was in both cases doing the right woman, right? The first case also. No, it was the right woman, but he wanted to have relations with the wrong woman, right? He wanted to have relations with somebody else, and instead he had relations with the right woman, right? That's shogeg. And Mazid is where he knew he was having relations with this woman, but he thought he was having relations with her for the purpose of licentious behavior, and said so that's what he did. And in fact, that in and of itself is sufficient to acquire the evil. Okay? So that's Ben B'Shoy Ben Mazid. Ben B'Onus Ben B'Ratzon, whether he's doing it because he's compelled, somebody puts a gun to his head to do it, or he's doing it willfully. I feel who shogivim is even if he thinks it's another woman, and she thinks she's just having loose relations, right? Free love. Or vice versa. Who makes it? He thinks he's just engaged in free love. Vishogegas, and she thinks it's another man. Who anus? He's compelled. Filu anusa, she's not compelled. He anusa, she's compelled. Bulu anus, and he's not compelled. That all these work. Now, echad and ma'ara. Ma'ara, Gemara is going to discuss in great detail what ma'ara means. What it means, you initiate the process, but you do not go all the way. Okay? V'echad goymer, or if he goes all the way in inserting himself into her, kada, this is a valid acquisition. There's no distinction between various types of marital, or in this case, yibum relations. Okay? Says the Gemara, Anon Tzninon, we learned, Afilu hu shogeg v'huimazida, even if he thinks another woman, and she thinks they're just doing it for licentious purposes, who makes it or vice versa, he's doing it for licentious purposes, bishogegas, and she thinks it's another man, these work. Tai Rabbi Chia taught us, Afilu shteim shogin, even if he thinks it's another woman and she thinks it's another man, it's still a valid form of acquiring evil. Nobody's got to know who they're in bed with in order for it to work. It works no matter what. Because the Mishnah didn't say that. Afilu shteim shogin.
No, but the Mishnah's clear. The pattern is whether you're doing it for the right reason or the wrong reason. It's a Hebrew.
I might let their limits on that, I guess, and for whatever reason. The Gemara science don't need there any limits. But you're right. I don't know why the Gemara felt so compelled. But says the Gemara, Afilu shteim mezidin, and of course also both of them think doing it for licentious purposes. You don't need anybody to have any altruistic motive, even if everybody here is a low life. It still works. Now they want to say that that perhaps our Mishnah is talking about a person who's intelligent, meaning that he's not an imbecile, nor is he deaf mute, right? Then since he has the capacity to have intent, Shukona, he acquires the Yevama, Bain Ladas Bechlo, that's whether he had it or right intent or not. Because it's like we have a principle in Shas called Royal Bila Ein Bila Makevesbo. Anything which is suitable for purpose does not require the actual thing. So here too, he's suitable to have intent, even though he doesn't actually have intent, that works. However, what about Cheresh, a deaf mute? Shem Bodas. who doesn't have intent, or at least normally doesn't have intent, perhaps his bia, his relations do not work unless he has somehow, in a way, becomes known to us, I guess, because he writes it down or something, clear-cut intent.
Is Cherish eligible for
Yes, he is. We're going to learn about that too. He is eligible for Yibum. So I might say that even though a person who's intelligent doesn't need das, because he can have das, a cheresh, a person who's deaf mute, who we assume does not have das, we continue to have that, to make that assumption, unless he can prove to us that he is capable of das. So it says, we found the Brisa which said, no, even a cheresh, a deaf mute, or a shoita, an imbecile, shebalu, who had relations, kanu. Oh, welcome back to the land of the living. You've been around? You've been out of town? Been around? We just started a new pair. Both a deaf mute and an imbecile, Shabalu had relations, Kanu, they work, that works Apotuas and they exempt the co-wives from Yibum. That's a very important point. A deaf mute or an imbecile cannot contract a Doraisa marriage, but they can contract a Doraisa Yibum. Because Yibum doesn't require das. It's just the act of relations. So that's what it works with even Cheresh. He's worse than a 9-year-old boy. Because he's a child. His bia is not truly a bia yet. It's only a bia for certain chumras, but it's not a bona fide, full-fledged bia. Right, because of lack of physical maturity. That's right. Okay? That's not required. Well, if I didn't make it, then it was simply because I had matured in my mind till I got here. But that's what it is. It has to be not by das, but a physical capacity. Okay, we'll dash this out for the following pasuk, and with this following pasuk we use. That's not clear to me. Either we use it for multiple drushes, or instead of using it for multiple drushes, it's there's somehow all these things come from the same 3 words. We use the same 3 words here thrice over in order to make drushes. Yevama Yavola. Yevama has relations with her L'daito, that means with intent. Ulkachal Elisha, and then superfluous statement. He'll take her for a wife. Even if he had no intent. That's the superfluous word. I feel even if it's against her will. And then we go around, we darshan again. Yevama have relations with her. L'data, with her intent. He takes her wife. Shlo data, even without her intent. V'ibma, and has relations with her, and he's miyabim her. Again, I feel even without her consent. And then we darshan it again. Actually, darshan 4 times. That's the normal way, through normal orifices of bia. That's valid. And he takes for a wife that shalokadaka through abnormal orifices, Bill Clinton type of behavior. That type of thing seems to work in order to acquire Yavama. That's what it says here. V'yibma, and he's miyavim her. Afilu minatzad. Now, afilu minatzad means, it's not clear exactly what it means, but it seems that afilu minatzad means there's a bia which I never understood, even though I'm married for many years already. There's a bia mentioned in Gemara and Ksuvas, which says that you have relations with a woman batoya. Batoya means on an angle. And somehow that's a way to have relations with a woman in a way that will prevent her from getting pregnant. I don't know exactly how it works. I have no idea. So I don't even know exactly how it works. But the idea is that this type of bia, even though it can't impregnate her, and I might think the whole purpose of bia, of yibum, is to make progeny for the deceased kid, for the deceased brother. Nevertheless, it's still a valid bia. Yivama Yivola, Now the Yom should come with her Bia Gemura, that's complete Bia. The Kachal Isha, Lo Isha should take her for a wife. The Bia, top of Lamed Hey Rav, She'enik Gemura, even if it's not a complete Bia. And Yevam of Yibma, Afil Baroya, even if it's just Haroya, which is much less than that. So we have Bia Gemura, complete Bia, Bia She'enik Gemura, partial Bia, and Haroya, which is even lower level. Now, the Noid Yehuda has points out that the Bavli only has two levels, Haroya and Gemar Bia, only the beginning and the end. But the Yerushalmi's got three levels, Haroya, Bia She'enik Gemura, and Bia Gemura, the three different levels. The Noid Yehuda has a Shrek L'Chamaisa. By the way, if you ever want to read the X-rated literature, the Noid Yehuda is the place to look. And it's heartening to see what terrible kinds of things were going on in the Noid Yehuda's time with adultery and licentious behavior, and our times can't be any worse than the Noid Yehuda's times 200 years ago. He has, for example, over 200 years ago, he has talks about the Smart Tshuva, where there's a certain woman who was the daughter of an innkeeper who had guests, and there were two guests in the inn, and one of them was sleeping in the woman's room. This was a married daughter. She was married to a Kohen. So one of them was sleeping in a room where the daughter was, in the same room behind curtains, and there was another guy who was a guest who was in another room, and in the middle of the night this guest comes into this room where the innkeeper's daughter and the guy is, and he gets into bed behind the curtains with the innkeeper's daughter, and the innkeeper's daughter starts shouting, Oy vey, I become Tomei, and then the guy runs out, and then the question is, did he have relations with her? Didn't he have relations with her? If he had a relation with her, she's forbidden to us, because her husband's a Kohen, even if she's raped, she's forbidden, and then they go into great detail as did he actually, was he able to complete the Bia? Because it says there, the guy claimed, the rapist claimed that he wasn't able to complete the Bia because he had an ejaculation before he managed to complete the whole Bia. There's a long discussion there of exactly how far he was able to insert himself or not able to insert himself into the woman. So it's amazing, a tshuva, very, very explicit tshuva, and it's based on this Gemara, and that and other tshuvas just go to show you that, you know, we're not so bad as we think we are, or at least they weren't so great as we think they might have been. Anyway, so this is Czechoslovakia. Okay, so Ezri Haroya. What's Haroya? Vayira Mashma Akadeshin Tendiyat Shetei Nira Shetei Etzba Niris Ben Asfoyos. It's when it looks like the fingers between the lips. The lips here don't mean the upper lips, or rather the bottom lips of a woman, right? And when it looks like the fingers between the lips, so that's considered to be Haroya, quite there. That Rabbi Babachia said, no, Rabbi Yechon, that's not enough. That's not considered to be Haroya. That's not yet Bia. And that Noid Yehuda took that as being a critical point. Rather, actually, Torah, the crown of the aver, the crown has to enter into the passageway. So it's not just that there's a little, tip, but the very tip, but the entire crown, meaning the slope on top, has to enter into the woman, right? Rabbi Bar Chia b'shem Rabbi Yechon said, "Nichnesu ha'Torah." When though that's not considered to be Haroya, if the Torah has gone in, Zui Gemar Bia, that's considered to be a complete Bia. Says Mark, what do you mean it's considered to be a complete Bia? Manakim, what are you talking about? In B'shar Korayas, if you're talking about all other Arayas, except for the one we're going to talk about immediately, also Ben Samara Kugoimer, then you don't need to have Gemar Bia. You don't have to say that when he sticks in that Torah, that's already considered to be a complete Bia, even if it's just considered to be Haroya. That's already sufficient to make to have transgressed the prohibition of whatever Arayas you're talking about. And in b'shivcha shichva zera, shivcha charufa, talking about shivcha charufa, ad sheiflot. He's not liable by shivcha charufa. You remember shivcha charufa is anybody? Shivcha charufa is a woman who's half freed, half slave, who's married to an Eved Ivri. Right? married to a Jewish slave. So other man has relations with her, so he's not chayiv ad she'iflot. He's not chayiv on having relations until he actually ejaculates, even though he entered her. And completely, that's not chayiv. So here we have the three madregas, right? We have hara, that's either just the looking like it's between the lips, or putting the atora, putting the crown of the aver, the slope of the aver in. Then we have gamar bia, which is actually complete insertion, but not yet ejaculating. And then you have the unique bia required for shivcha rufa, which is the Yerushalmi's invention, it seems. The Bavli doesn't have this level of bia, which is when the actual ejaculation takes place. And the reason why that is because it says by shivcha rufa that he lies with her shichva zera, right? Which means actually there's seed involved, according to Yerushalmi. That actually he potentially impregnated her by having released his zera inside. No. These are what do you mean they don't? In May, yeah. Yes. Biat Shifla would be Bia Gemura. Lokal Lulish would be Bia Shena Gemura. That's where it's not polate. Yes. Hara is the Achnosa Satora. Bia Shena Gemura is complete insertion but no ejaculation. And then Bia Gemura is insertion plus ejaculation. I'll wait. Right. Okay, again, the Bavli doesn't have that concept ever, that you have to have ejaculation. The Bavli never recognizes that once you're completely in, there's nothing else to it. But he says here that there's an additional level beyond that. Right, that's what the Bia Shena Gemura is. Right. Okay. So says the Gemara, you don't need to have Gamar Bia. Ma'ahara is sufficient. You have to ejaculate. This is like De Omar. Because Rabbi Yirmiyah both said B'Shem Rav, Shichva Zera, since in the Torah it says the word Shichva Zera, which means the lying of seed, Ad Shiflot, so until you ejaculate. So what are we talking about? Interesting thing. And when a widow has relations with a high priest, which is of course forbidden, it's not Vamrai Babar Memo. Babar Memo said, and there we have levels. Haraba, if you just had hara, right, just the putting in of the slope. Chayiv mishum chalola. Now that word chayiv is not relevant. It's not really a chayiv. It means she can no longer marry a Kohen. She's rendered unfit by the Kohen Gadol in partially inserting himself to the point where the slope at the top of the aver is in her body, okay, between the lips. That's Nichnasa Torah. Then when there's been a full insertion of the upper part, meaning of the Torah, so this is obviously going to be before that hara is. I want to backtrack just a little bit. Hara is only touching, right? That it looks like it's between the lips. So that array is a chalola. Nichnasa Torah, when that Torah the slope goes in, so then Chaim Shum Bia, you transgress the Bia you transgress having relations with a forbidden woman, right? Going to transgress. Gomer Bia, when you complete the Bia, and that sounds here like it's not clear whether we're talking about completion in terms of complete insertion, or more likely when you ejaculate. So then your chai mishum lo yichal zara b'amot shat desecrate your children in your nation. That's an interesting thing because, of course, there's no children here, right? So what are we learning actually Zerah here as being? Where you deposit your seed in a woman who's not suitable for you. So again, 3 levels. Beginning the process, she becomes unfit to marry a Kohen. Going the step further, so then he transgressed the prohibition of having forbidden relations. Going a step further, so then he transgressed the additional the transgression of defiling his seed. Okay? 3 levels. Is that clear? 1, 2, 3.
When he is hired, what's he's
Malchus.
Okay, what about the last stage?
See, like separate Malchus. Because Yerushalmi is only 2 prohibitions here.
2 sets of rules.
Right. Okay. So, which is, of course, a big Kiddush. Tamti, we learned over there. Now, this is a little bit of a sidetrack. We learned over there, all women are tamei when the blood, the nida blood, enters the outer house of their private parts. Ezu bais chitzon, what's the outer house? So Rabbi Yochanan says, at least the first one understands it, to mean a place very close to the aperture, to the opening. It's ad mokum shatinokas yoshvos l'mayim. It's up to a place where when the girls sit down to urinate, veneros you can see in. Okay? When girls sit down to urinate, you can see in to a certain point. I guess not very far because really they still have their basulim, their virginity intact. So I don't know how far I can see in. So that's considered to be the bais achitza on the outer area. Okay? So, that's difficult. All the tmeil she's metame is even now. It means even onto the cervix. Page 9 means the teeth, the inside teeth of the womb. So it means that even if the blood doesn't get all the way out there to the outer area, even if it's right next to the cervix, she's already metame. So why is saying only if the blood reaches the bais achitzot, the area immediately behind the opening, even if it's relatively high up, just beyond the cervix, it already is metame her. Okay? So it says the Gemara, and Tani, Rabbi Zakir said concerning this, ad beis hashnaim, up to the beis hashnaim, meaning the entire area from the outside opening until the cervix is an area where blood goes to your stomach. However, if the blood is stuck in the opening of the cervix, I don't know exactly what that's called, but if it's stuck in that cervical opening over there, so then she's not metame. Okay, because that area is considered to be as if it's inside the body. So it's all kash Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said it's only the bais achitza, only when you get to the very outside. It's not true. Any area beyond the cervix. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Blum, Shmuel said, and really his answer to Rabbi Yochanan, Kol beis haboshes, kol beis achitza. The entire embarrassing area. It means the entire genital area from the opening of the cervix up until the lips of to that area. That's all considered to be bais achitza. And the whole thing is anywhere in there where there's blood because it makes her tummy. Okay? Period. End of that issue. Kana v'lo kana. V'lo chilek, getting back to the Gemara, the Mishnah. Actually, it still obviously goes on the same vein, but kana v'lo kana. It says, if you did a partial bia on your yabama, it's a valid acquisition. V'lo chilek be'bila bia. No distinction is drawn between various types of bia, as long as you did some type of bia. Ma'akana. So what works if you did only a partial bia? To what extent does it work? So it says the Gemara, Shmuel Amar, it's not a full kiddush. It's not fully his wife. Interesting. It's not a full wife status, but rather only vis-a-vis the things which is stated by Yibum. It only works for the things stated in this parsha of Yibum, which is an interesting thing. That means the Yevamos is only fully married if there was a full bia, whatever that means, right? If there's only a partial bia, so it's not a full marriage. It's only marriage vis-a-vis the things mentioned in the Parsha of Yibum. What are they? So here it says that the brother who's just in the Yibum inherits his brother's property. To forbid this woman, the Yevama, to his other brothers, because he didn't miyabim her. To allow her, the co-have of this Yevama, to get married to the marketplace. So we see here that it's not considered to be a full acquisition, only limited acquisition according to according to Shmuel. What? You would not need to get, right, because it's not a full marriage. But if you need to get, it'll only be a partial get, not a full get. I don't know what you even call it. I don't know. If we pass next Shmuel, we'd have to figure it out. Fortunately, we do not. So we pass like Rabbi Yochanan. Fortunately or unfortunately. Rabbi Yochanan are called Dvar. Even a partial beer by Yevama acquires her for LL purposes. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Bar Loza said, Ma'plin the home achlokas is b'shei araba. We began the beer. If you complete the beer, which I assume means even if you didn't actually ejaculate. So in that case, everybody agrees that the kinyan is complete. Rabbi Sai said a very interesting dichotomy. He said, Mapli, when's the machlokas? We had relations with her when she's still in her father's house. There, the only time it's considered to be a full yibum, meaning that she's fully married, is if he had a full bia. A partial bia only generates the partial marriage. However, excuse me? No, even if she's more than 12.5 years old, but to the exclusion of it was anywhere besides her husband's house. Anywhere besides her new husband's house. Yeah. What?
What's the significance of her still being in her father's house?
Well, no. I think it's even a pasuk by this. I don't see it right now. I don't see a pasuk. I'm making that up, obviously. But he says here, look at what he says. It should be just based by law. We're in her husband's house. Then everybody agrees that it's a valid kinyan altogether. Why is that? Because the partial bia linked to her being in her husband's house is enough to make it a full yibum. Okay? I understand what you're asking me, but obviously the answer is that bringing her into the house is also part and parcel of taking hold of her. And that's why in your house, it's kind of like, there's an additional component similar to the chuppah by regular marriage. So it's happening in your own house, so it's more of an isuin, it's more of a completion, and therefore, even as a partial bia, she already becomes his complete wife. Right, he brought her over the threshold. That's right. Says the Gemara. Yeah. Doesn't he just say Perik Nara? Perik Nara, yeah. Perik Nara. Sorry. We'll scratch that from the record. So it says, well, I'm Rabbi Yossi said, Mastisa Amra seems to be a price. It says, Kadsar, once you take her into your house, she's like your wife for all matters. So even a partial bia plus your house makes her a wife altogether. But truma, what's the status? Can she eat truma when they had these incomplete relations, not in her husband's house, in her new husband's house? So it says the Gemara, near environment, see like this. Right, Baba Shem Rishmo said, near environment, he says, if she was already eating truma by in her husband's life, meaning she was fully married to the deceased husband. Now, if she has to be, when she was a Yevama, she had to stop because she's the Israelis, right? She wasn't allowed to eat it. But now, when the Yibum occurs, so that even partially she continues to eat. However, Bimlat, if her husband's like that, she could not yet eat Truma. Because her husband, although he was a Kohen, had not fully married her yet, he only did Erusin on her, not Nisuin. And we know that Allah said after Erusin, not Nisuin, she can't yet eat Truma. So then, even after this partial Bia, she cannot eat. Says Rabbi Yochanan, no, Afilu Ochlo Cheles. Rabbi Yochanan holds a partial Bia is like a full Bia. So even if she wasn't eating yet, now she commences to eat Truma after the partial relations. Rabbi Yossi says, Kaf of Lamed, hey on my base, I feel Nires Lecho, even if she was only suitable to eat but had not yet eaten, meaning that the halacha is, if a woman was engaged for 12 months, her husband must marry her at that point. And if he didn't, so then she could start eating Truma. It's called the Igiyas Ma'avelo Nisu. The time came and they weren't married. So then the time came, the 12 months came, and then the husband dropped dead before marrying her. So then she could still eat Truma under the auspices of a new husband as long as there's a partial Bia, right? Masisim Masayde is my Bryce, which is proof for each one of these. Masisim Masayde Shmuel is a Bryce, which is a proof to Shmuel that it depends on whether she was eating Truma before or not. Basisro Pikachas. If you have a Yisraelis, one is Yisrael, who's an intelligent woman, meaning that she fulfills the criteria of Das, Shanisis Kohen Cheresh, who married a Kohen who's a deaf mute. Ain't no chaz of Truma, she can't eat Truma. Do you know why she can't eat Truma? Because her marriage is not a valid marriage, though, Raisa. If you marry a deaf mute, it's not a valid marriage, right? It's only a rabbinic marriage. Okay? So, Mace, what if now she dies? This Bas Yisrael dies. The daughter of Yisrael dies, and hopefully now Yovam. And now she's from Yevamos. So Haisa Bikachas, if at the time she married the brother, the deceased brother, he was a Bikach, even though it says Bikachas, he was intelligent. So now she can continue to eat as a Yevamos. Even if her new husband, the brother, is a Cherish. Because although a Cherish, a deaf mute can't contract an original marriage, he can pick off as a Yavam, right? However, Chereshes, what if her original marriage was vice versa? Her original marriage was to a deaf mute. So that's not a valid marriage for Truma. Now that guy died and she had a partial Bia with the new guy. So she can't eat Truma. When she has a full Bia with the new guy, she can eat Truma. Because then she's fully married to him. But if it's a partial Bia, she can't. So that's like Shmuel says, a partial Bia doesn't allow her yet to eat Truma. Okay? It's not fully married yet, unless, of course, it took place in the husband's house, right? That's a Brayos like Shmuel. Now we have Masisim Sa'ad Rabbi, which says even a partial Bia is like a complete acquisition. But Yisrael Bikachas, the Yisraelis, who is intelligent, who got affianced, without Nisuin, to a Kohen who's intelligent, and that means she can't yet eat Truma, and he was not able to effect Chuppah Nisuin with her, which would enable her to eat Truma. Until he became a deaf mute. Until she became a deaf mute, and the marriage can't ever be finished, and therefore she can never eat Truma. May can't be finished the Raisa, finished the Rabbanim, but not the Raisa. May, so what happens if she dies, the Nafla, if now Yovam falls in front of a Yovam, then I feel Cherish or Cheles. Even if the Yovam is a Cherish, she can eat the Truma. In other words, she never consummated the marriage with her original husband because either he became a Cherish or she became a Cherish. But there was Eris in Doraisa. So he can consummate the marriage. But the Yovam, who doesn't require that, he may consummate the marriage. When he does so, she can eat Truma. So it's an irony. The brother who started the process can't complete the marriage. The brother who continues the process can't complete the marriage. Because the difference between marriage, which requires das, and Yibum, which requires no das, right? This case, the Yavam's koyach is greater than the Baal. The Yavam's strength is greater than the husband's strength. Shayavam cheresh ma'achil. The Yavam was deaf mute, can allow it to eat truma. About Baal cheresh, if the husband deaf mute, eno ma'achil, does not allow it to eat truma. So this is like Rabbi Yochanan, that even an incomplete bia, such as the bia of a cheresh, which is lacking in das, that also is enough to get her to have full right over truma, a full marriage. Okay? Next Mishnah. Some translations with any of the forbidden relationships in the Torah. Oh, psulos, or some translations with women who are unfit for him. Almana kohen gadol, such as Almana marrying a high priest. Gerusha of a chalitza kohen hadyon, a divorcee, a woman underwent chalitza to a regular kohen. Mamzeres or nesina liYisrael, a mamzeres or nesina for the children of the Gibeonite tribe who marries Yisrael, ubas Yisrael, the daughter of Yisrael, lemamzer lenasin to a mamzer or to a Gibeonite pasal. In all these cases, the woman had relations can no longer ever marry a Kohen again, no matter what. It makes no difference if the problem was the problem of hara. Only the beginning of the process of marbia should already defiled from ever marrying a Kohen again. Okay. Now, says more further. Almana lo yikach. It says the Kohen Gadol should not take an almana. Afilu on us, the way say that even if he was compelled to take her, is he potter? Now it sounds this is a trick Gemara, because afilu on us usually mean, do you mean even if he's compelled he's chayav? But no, here it means, do you say he's potter if he raped her? You say in that case he's off the hook. No, he shouldn't defile his he shouldn't defile his kids. Yeah, and that means that no matter what, even if he's honest, there's still defilement going on, because defilement has nothing to do with the nature of the avera, whether it was honest or ratzon, but it has to do with the nature of the relationships. So therefore, she becomes forbidden. Yochafiu hera. What do I say that if all he did was hara, she's off the hook and she doesn't become pasul? Tamloma, that's why it says no. It says you should actually skip a line because the lines here are redundant. Tamloma lo yachol lo yachalel. It could have said lo yachol with one lamed. It says lo yachalel with two laments. Afilu b'haroi means even if you just initiate the process, you already become tamei and unfit to serve as kohen.
So that case that the Northern Yehuda mentioned, that's this case.
Which case?
It was Hara. She was still defiled. She was also to her husband.
No, but no even it says it wasn't even Haroya. Because he had premature ejaculation. Even if he got it between the lips, it's not enough considered to be Hara until the entire Torah enters. Okay, that's what he meant to say. Okay, so it says more Akadun Rabbi Akiva. That's like Rabbi Akiva, who would darshan. It could have said lo yachel with one lamed, or lo yachul the way it's spelled here. It says lo yachel with two lameds. He darshans that. But Rabbi Shmuel, what about Rabbi Shmuel, who says Dibur Torah Klosh B'nei Adam? Says the Torah just speaks idiomatically like human beings speak. So people speak idiomatically. Lo yachel, you can't darshan anything from that. So how does he darshan that even Haroya makes her puzzle? I'll tell you. Rabbi Shmuel taught us in the Brisa. It says lekicho by Kohen Gadol and Amona. For them around lekicho, it says over there lekicho. Where? B'shakar arayos. Don't marry any other arayos. Malkiel b'shakar arayos, just like the lekicho, which is mentioned by all other arayos. In that case, also Basa American Goymer. Anybody who starts the bia to the bia finishes the bia, and he transgressed the Isser. So to hear here too by the Mother Kohen Gadol, so he initiates the Bia, it says they completed the Bia and they have transgressed the prohibition. Rabbi Chagai asked, if that's the case, boy, if you're going to make Zeir Shala, go whole hog. It's just like the acquisition, which is mentioned by all other rayas. The initiating of relations is like finishing it. But besides that, Havlad Mamzer, the kid is a Mamzer. Because of relations in any other rights, the kid becomes a Mamzer, right? Afkan, so to here, so to say over here, that if you had relations with Amona, had relations with Kohen Gadol, that the kid should become a Mamzer, right? Afkan, let's say also here, Nasa Basam Arer. There's a marker going, let's say beginning is like ending. And Vladi Mamzer, there could be a Mamzer as well. So Rabbi Yisrael said, no, it can't be. Because Leida Mila, for what purpose, Itmar Chalel? Cholol. Does it say that the kid of this union is a Cholol? Lo the Mamzer, Rov Cholol. Is Mamzer not a greater Chiddush than a Cholol? Or is the Mamzer is far greater deficit than a Cholol? Yet it says here that if Amona has relations with the Kohen Gadol, it only causes Chilul. So it must be, it's going to tell us, don't think we go whole hog like a Mamzer, it's only Chilul. By the way, what's the between Mamzer and Chilul? Of course, a Mamzer may not marry any born Jew, right? A Chol can marry, unless they're also Mamzer. A Chol can marry anybody he wants. He just can't serve as a Kohen. As kids can't serve as Kohen. Okay? So obviously mentions Chol in this case, I would say lesser Madrega than Mamzer. Aser Raibun Bar Bista, another answer is given by Raibun Bar Bista. The Shem Raibar Mel, Ne Raibar Memo. Nema Kan Lakim, right? Ma Lakim Choshremar B'Shmerez Yov, just like the Chiv mentioned by Shmerez Yov, I'm also about Smaraka Goimer. If the Yavam has relations with it partially, it's if he completed and a blood kosher, of course the kid is kosher in that case. Avgil Shemar Kan, so to here, where it says the Kichan Nasis of Vlad Maraka Goimer, the person begins like the person finishes, black kosher, and the kid is kosher as well. Domer Rabbi Bar Memel, and this in fact is corresponds to that which he said in Amar Aleph. Hera Ba, when you initiate relations with her in terms of Hara, because of Chalala, you made a Chalala. Nilsa Torah, that's when you touch. When the crown goes in, Chaim shouldn't be you're liable because he had relations with a woman who's not suitable for you. And then finally, the last stage is Gam Rabbi, he completed the Bia, then Chaim Shum Chal Zara, you're liable because you defiled your kids, meaning defiled your seed. Okay, next Mishnah, Lochakim. Amon Kohen Gadol, Grushel Chutz Kohen Hedia, and Amon for Kohen Gadol, or a divorcee, or a chalutza for a regular Kohen. Mina Erusin. If this happened and they were only affianced, betrothed, and not fully married, lo yochel b'truma, they can't eat truma after the death of the brother. Rabbi Lezer Yishum Machshir, Rabbi Lezer Yishum say they're kosher. Now, I made a mistake. You're right. Right, let me go back. Right, I apologize. Now, this is talking about where the Almona or the Grushchutza was a Kohenes. She was a Kohenes. And she went and she married a Kohen Gadol, even though she's a widow, or went and married a regular Kohen, even though she's a divorcee. She could still eat Truma until they have the first relations, even after the Kiddushin. That's what it's saying. Okay, she does not defile being Truma until after relations. Relezer Rabbi Shimon Machshirin. Now Relezer says, even if they went Nisuin, it's not enough until their actual relations. But it's according to I made a mistake. Tanakama says once they underwent Erusin, they already can't eat Truma, even though they didn't have relations. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, they say they can have relations, they can eat Truma. Machshirin, they say they're still okay. They can still have relations until they can still eat Truma until they have relations or effectively suing. I confused you, I guess. Tanakama holds that once an almana gets betrothed to Kohen Gadol, that's it. Even if she was a Kohenet, now she loses her right to eat truma for all eternity. Rabbi Lezer says even their betrothed, it ain't over until they actually consummate their marriage. That's when she loses her right for all eternity. Okay? Nisamon and Niskashman is suing. Now, the flip side of that is, let's say that Almana Kohen Gadol actually got married, and he's suing. And then they got widowed or divorced from the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, right, justifiably so, kicked the bucket for having married an Almana. So then, psulos, they can't eat truma. Because once they were nasui, once they were fully married to him, that's it, they lose the right to eat truma. Meaning, Eresid, if they only, however, got widowed or divorced after they were betrothed to the Kohen Gadol, then once their husband dies, they can go back to eating truma. Okay, Matan Rabbana. What's the logic of Rabbana? So it says more Nemar Kanavai. It says here Avaya, the words Kisiyah, Bas Kohen Kisiyah Ishzor. Kohen Gadol, she marries a foreign man. V'Nemar La'avlalon. It says later on Avaya, Ken Aram Rusal Ish. If there's a young girl who's engaged to a man. Ma Avaya Shemar Halan Erusin, just like over there. We're talking about engaged or betrothed. Afkan Erusin, so too, when it's Tiel Izor that forbids her from eating Truma, already the moment she has Erusin. Okay? That moment she's already finished. Matan Rabbi Lezer Shimon. So why does Rabbi Shimon say, no, it ain't over until after they get fully married or until after Biyah? So Nemar Kanavai, they learn from somewhere else. It says here, Abai Kisiel Izor, and here the Gillian Ephraim changes the gears so dramatically. Takes out the whole next line and changes it to Upat. It says Nemar Lahal. It says here. I'm sorry. It should be Nemar Kanavaya. It says Bas Kohen Kitiyah Zor. The Nemar Lahal. It says later on Havaya, where it says by later on Uvas Kohen Kitiyah Amona Grusha V'Zerei Lo. It says the Bas Ish Kohen who's an Amona or a Grusha and has no kids, so she goes back to eat her own truma, eat truma in our father's house. So there it's talking about even if she was already in a suah, to Yisrael, as long as her husband was kosher, not in a Kohen, but as long as her husband was kosher, then once she gets divorced or a widow, she can go back and eat truma, right?
Kosher marriage.
Right.
This isn't the kosher marriage.
Right, that's it. That's to say, just like over there, the determining factor is what happens when she's in a suah, fully married. So the determining factor is what happens when she's in a suah, fully married. But if she's not yet fully married, even though she's betrothed to a forbidden person, that doesn't ask her from going back to eat truma when she gets divorced or widowed from him. Okay? So Rabbi Yosef said, I don't get it. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, how can you say that a Bas Kohen, how can you say this Bas Kohen over here where it says Bas Kohen Kitiyah Lishzar, that it's talking about only where she had full marriage to the Kohen Gadol, right? The Amor Kohen Gadol, Grusha V'Chalutz Kohen Edior. How can you say it? We have a law which says a Bas Kohen She'isar to Yisrael, a Bas Kohen who gets even betrothed to Yisrael, She'en Ochels B'Truma. She can't eat Truma anymore. How do you know that? Lo min adein cry, it does not for this possible. Ubas Kohen Kisiyel Yizor, when a daughter of a Kohen marries an Yizor, and that clear, and the way that Josh works is clear that once she gets Eretz into the Yizor, to Yisrael, she can no longer eat Truma. So, here, in terms of her marrying Yisrael, the minute she gets betrothed to Yisrael, she can no longer eat Truma. So you learn that pasuk about Erusin vis-a-vis the Yisrael. Yet the self-same pasuk, when they apply it to a Amona, Kohen Gadol, Grusha Chalutz Kohen Edior, they say it's only if it's Nisuin. How could it possibly be? That's taking the same pasuk and using it in two different contexts. So it says, no, you misunderstood them. Matam Rabbanan, what do the rabbis really hold? They say Ish, right? They said Bas Ish Kohen, Bas Kohen Kisiyel Ish. Okay? When she gets married to an Ish. Now, Isha Ma'achil. Isha Ma'achil means even if she gets married to a person who normally would allow her to eat truma, but situationally cannot allow her to eat truma. Why? Because even though he's a Kohen Gadol, she's an Almona, or even though he's a Kohen, she's a Grusha, right? So in that case, when she's loish, when she belongs to the man, then she's possible for eating truma. And loish means mamish belonging to the ish. So they really divided the pasuk into two. Basish going kisiyeh. When she's tiyeh, even eris into a zar, she can't eat truma. And when it's loish, then when it's complete, and loish here means an ish who could elsewise make a truma, but when here it's situational pasuk, when he's that kind of ish zar, then it's only when it's complete marriage. So says the Gemara, why can we learn that from a kavachomer? Why do you need the pasuk? Below dinner it should be a kavachomer. Mine be so shame be also plus minakuna. A Yisrael who has relations with a woman who regular with a kohenes doesn't make her possible from going back one day to her father's house to eat truma. Nevertheless, be also poslasa mina truma. Right now, his biyam impedes her from eating truma. Right, Sunday she go back, but right now she can't eat truma because she's married to him. Right. Kohen Gadol should be also post-loss min hakuna, or Kohen Gadol l'amora, where he renders her unfit for eternity to going back to the kuna. And Odin Shatei be also post-loss min truma is not a kavachomer that his bia should make her post min truma. So why do you have to learn out that his bia from the pasuk that his bia makes her post truma? Right, when she's law ish. Anyway, it's kavachomer. If he's rolled up when she's married to Yisrael, she can't eat truma. Kavachomer, she's on one of the Kohen Gadol, she can't eat truma. Says one no. Lo yamar to be so shein machas. Could have said it some other svar. Could have said Yisrael makes her possible to eat truma because nobody can eat truma. He never allows a woman to eat truma. He bars women from eating truma. Tomer Kohen Gadol, but Kohen Gadol shu machilos acheros. Sometimes he allows women to eat truma if he marries a woman who is allowed to marry. So therefore, I might say, I might say it's kakamemi. It sounds kakamemi, but maybe it works. Maybe since other women he allows to eat truma, so even if he has relations Kohen Gadol Amara, it's true. It's an improper marriage. Maybe she could still eat truma. Nishmar kal v'chomer. It's a kal v'chomer doesn't work. Because that's you have to go back to the pasuk. So that's why that l'isha machil. That's to say what makes her unfit to eat truma. The fact that she's married, even the guy normally can make her eat truma, but here he doesn't allow her to eat truma, and makes her possible. All right, we still have to get back to this. We'll come back to this tomorrow night as to why nisuin is the point of and not Harrison. Well, it's not clear yet.